So, the film Michael has been a record breaking film. But the question still remains, is it worth the cinema trip? Hi and welcome to Chi Chi's Cinema Club. My name's Chinwei, aka Chi Chi, and I love going to the cinema. On this channel, I don't only review new films, I ask if they're actually worth the trip. Today I'm asking if the film Michael is worth the cinema trip. The film stars Jafar Jackson as Michael Jackson and Coleman Domingo as Joseph Jackson and Nia Long as Catherine Jackson. The film also has a sprinkle of familiar faces you may recognise, such as Miles Teller playing Michael Jackson's manager, John Branca, and Mike Myers playing the CBS Records president, Walter Yetninkoff. I hope I've pronounced that correct. The film is directed by Antoine Fuqua, known for the Training Day film, which was an Oscar-winning film, and the Equalizer film trilogy. Now let's talk about the audience vibe. Now this film is definitely a music biopic, so if you are a huge Michael Jackson fan, and I have to say I knew a lot of these songs growing up, it has a great example of some well-known choreographed moves, and Jafar Jackson steps up to the plate as a great embodiment of Michael Jackson. Of course it helps that he is the nephew of Michael Jackson, and it does show that he studied him very well in preparation for this movie. So this is a type of film that the audience found at some points were funny and shocking. Even if you didn't know Michael Jackson, just watching alone gives you a sense of how he actually became a global musical icon, that you had people who were fanatical about him. I guess you can still relate it to today's pop stars, but this was on a whole nother level. I think just the fact that he was selling virtual vinyl records of the songs is not something that you get nowadays. There were lots of historical facts shown. I really like the fact that he pushed to break racial barriers and get more black artists shown on MTV. I was surprised to learn that MTV didn't want to feature black artists, but I never watched MTV when I was younger. In terms of cinematic moments, I really think the best part was Jafar Jackson and his dance moves. He really embodied Michael Jackson very well, and I think his physical presence was good. I think there are a lot of things that I definitely know that people have seen in videos on other social media platforms of Michael Jackson, such as YouTube videos of his dancing. I just get a sense that wasn't something that was shown enough, and that's a shame. I'm not sure why the moonwalk and the story behind it was not shown. It was a revelation when it was first shown, and I can remember trying to do it, but it was awful. Another cinematic moment was actually the relationship between Michael Jackson and Joseph Jackson. Coleman Domingo was amazing as Joseph, and again, I think there should be more on the character's motivation and the history. There wasn't much emphasis on this, and you got glimpses of them, but not as much as I would have liked. Now, what stayed with me before I continue, I think the film had been hyped up so much because Michael Jackson, in my opinion, is a music legend. However, it didn't address certain things. I mean, Michael Jackson has some controversies in his life, but strangely, they weren't addressed in this film. You also notice that not all of the Jackson family members were shown, such as Janet Jackson. You did have LaToya Jackson appear, but it was a limited screen time. I do think it felt like a sanitized version of his life, and I'm not saying you shouldn't make a biography and keep it clean, especially when it's about a well-known figure. However, you shouldn't portray them as a saintly figure, as what makes a film more interesting is when you deep dive into the character's motivation, and it wasn't really addressed here. Controversies, good or bad, always play a part in a character. Even Joseph Jackson was a complex person, but again, he was shown as a very one-dimensional character. The same with Michael Jackson. Yes, they showed aspects of his life, that we knew he had a monkey called Bubbles, and yes, he kept animals. So it felt disjointed at times due to time jumps. From everything that I saw, I was really pulling for this film because I think Michael Jackson is a fascinating person and his songs are amazing. You could get any period in time of his music and you just know you're going to be tapping your feet. There were elements missing that made the film much emptier than it should have been. I went with a friend to see this film, and we were both discussing how it wasn't addressing those issues that you wanted to see about Michael Jackson. And it felt like you learned more about him elsewhere. Now, I understand there are some legal considerations, etc., but it also should have been something that you wanted to watch, and you would have got a more rounded characterization of Michael Jackson. So is this a cinema trip or a sofa deal? I did enjoy the film, and if you were there for the songs, I would say this is the kind of movie you can tap your feet to, and try to avoid singing of it because obviously you aren't going to be singing in the cinema. I also feel that if you're expecting more, if you're expecting a deep dive into Michael Jackson's history and the conflicts and the battles that he had to go through, this is not going to be the film. If you want to go and enjoy a slice of music history and you want to reminisce about his songs, you definitely get that sense, especially for the albums that were covered here, which were Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. So you will definitely enjoy that. I would say it's definitely worth seeing in the cinema. The cinematography is beautiful. It really is. And again, the kind of recognition of the fandom of Michael Jackson. You do leave not seeing that you've not seen an award-winning film, but you will think about the legacy of Michael Jackson in terms of his music. It really is all about the music. I was thumping my feet to all those songs. So if you want to learn more about why it was popular, it was great as it's pulled in a whole bunch of different people that don't normally come to the cinema. And I love that. And I think that's what films sometimes should get people to engage with the cinema. However, when I came out of the cinema, you do remember the songs, but are you really going to think about the strength of the performance? Whether you would watch it again, I just wouldn't say this is that type of film. Well, thanks for watching this. If you enjoyed this movie review, give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. I make these film reviews weekly, and if you like films the way I do, please subscribe. Otherwise, I hope to see you again soon, and I'll save you a seat.